I think we can all agree that Just Cause 4 was a massive setback for the Just Cause franchise. Rash development, terrible management, and failed marketing resulted in arguably the worst Just Cause game we have gotten so far. Now don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things that Just Cause 4 did right, and I had a lot of fun with the game, but the more I play it, the more I can see all of its flaws. It's been a year and a half since the game released, and we've all slowly been setting our sights into the future to see what Just Cause 5 could potentially be. Now, we don't have solid confirmation that Just Cause 5 will actually happen with the poor sales of Just Cause 4, but at the end of the day, they did leave the DLC ending open for a final Just Cause game. If you want to see my reasoning why we might see Just Cause 5, check out my other video I did on it, it's in the description down below. Now, Just Cause 5 is still probably 2-3 years away, especially with everything that's going on in the world, but today, I thought it'd be a good idea to create a wishlist of must-have features for the next Just Cause game. I've tweeted out this idea to people and got a bunch of replies from everyone, so I've compiled all the most requested features for the next Just Cause game. Let's start with the big one, the elephant in the room, which is of course multiplayer. Now this one is actually quite controversial in the Just Cause community, with a lot of players basically saying that Just Cause should remain a single player only game. But with that, I kind of disagree. Well, it depends, that's the thing, because Just Cause 2 and Just Cause 3 were fantastic as single player games, but Just Cause 4 needed that something extra, something that would make it truly a next-gen game, an evolution of the Just Cause franchise, and I think multiplayer is the right direction to take it in. I mean, the Just Cause 3 multiplayer mod, even the Just Cause 2 multiplayer mod are great fun. Obviously, they've got their flaws because they're not native to the game, but if multiplayer were to come to Just Cause, it has to be done right. What I mean by that is, first of all, letting us host our own sessions with dedicated servers. You do not want to limit the player creativity in a Just Cause game, and if you basically start restricting how many people we can have, what we can actually do in multiplayer, it's gonna be just a massive flop. We need the ability to spawn in any vehicle we would like, plus an object spawner would be amazing, so we can prepare sessions in advance. For example, create some sort of an area where we've got a bunch of different planes, ramps, stuff like that, so we can do the challenges and stunts we have envisioned in our head. That for me would basically take Just Cause to the next level. Like I said, just don't limit the player creativity. Now obviously with my version of the perfect Just Cause multiplayer is to create one massive sandbox for a bunch of people to just come together, create their own stunts, challenges, courses, liberate bases together, basically have the Just Cause single player experience but with friends. Now I do understand how this system is flawed because a lot of games that have tried something similar were criticized heavily, basically relying on players creating their own fun, but I feel like in a Just Cause game that would just work. Now if Just Cause multiplayer were to happen, I think it's gonna be inevitable that people will compare it to GTA Online, which I don't think would be a fair comparison because that's kind of not what Just Cause is about. Just Cause, let's be honest, is over the top craziness with explosions and stuff like that. GTA is a little bit more grounded. Maybe not GTA Online, they've kind of went off the rails with some of the vehicles and stuff like that, but that's what I mean. Just Cause could capture the essence of the craziness of GTA Online, make it its own, and it would actually work perfectly in the Just Cause universe. That's why I think multiplayer is a must for the next Just Cause game. I think I speak for everybody when I say that the base liberation system by means of destruction needs to be back for the next Just Cause game. The Just Cause 3 system with the base liberation and the re-oppression was so much fun. I mean, you could just re-liberate those bases to your heart's content. You weren't really limited with what you could do. You just got in there, blew a bunch of stuff up, and had fun. You could experiment with different vehicles, with different tactics, and it was just fun, you know? It was just the perfect Just Cause formula. The system that we got in Just Cause 4 was simply flawed. As you progress through the story, you unlocked more vehicles and tools, for them not to be used since the Black Hand presence would just disappear. And the base liberation system in this game was just tragic. It was very repetitive, it was just a bunch of hacking, it was just very boring in my opinion. all you resulted to was basically shooting at your targets with weapons. You couldn't really liberate any of the bases using vehicles because you would constantly have to get out, get back in. It was just very limiting, and that's not what Just Cause is. But obviously, the Just Cause 3 system was not perfect. There is still room for improvement to make it even better in my opinion. First of all, making the bases more creative to make players think outside the box when it comes to liberating them. For example, imagine a floating base above a volcano. The only way you'd be able to liberate it is by using air vehicles or your wingsuit and parachute combo, or some form of a flying object using the grapple mods and features we have gotten with Just Cause 4, basically preventing you from just going, you know, boots on the ground with a tank or something like that and just rolling through the base, destroying it. You would have to think about how you're exactly going to approach it, how you're gonna do it in the air, and the same thing could, for example, happen below the ocean, right? You could have some sort of a base that's underwater, then once again you have to think about how you're gonna approach it, how you're gonna basically try to destroy the whole thing. Is it by linking all the objects together with tethers and basically using the retractor to try to pull them from whatever they're attached to? You know, just make players think and make them try different things and experiments, because that is the only way that you're gonna be able to kind of, you know, open up the sandbox to a lot of people. Because I think the reason why my channel was fairly successful with the Just Cause games was because I was trying to, you know, provide different types of content for people and show them that you can do a bunch of different things and you can have fun in different ways. Not just approach everything at kind of face value and go for the easiest means of liberating something. You know, it's about having fun and it's about experimenting, in my opinion. That's really where the Just Cause games really shine. If you were to ask anybody that has played a Just Cause game before to summarize it in a few words, they would probably mention destruction or explosions. And with the next-gen consoles being just around the corner, it's inevitable that the next Just Cause game is going to be running on those consoles. So I think it's only fitting and about time for the destruction to be taken to the next level. Now, the way I envision next-gen destruction is by making it more realistic and more detailed, and also changing up some of the damage models for the vehicles, because at the moment, if you hit anything, your vehicle is just going to explode, which I'm not gonna lie is very entertaining. But just imagine a scenario where you're flying a plane and you see a tiny little gap and you know your plane is too big for it, but you go through it anyway. But then what happens is both of your wings are gonna get clipped off, but the body of the plane is still going to be intact. And you can just keep on gliding, trying to land it, do whatever you wanted to do, but basically survive that initial impact. I feel like that would change up the gameplay so much and would open up so many different possibilities. Now obviously with next-gen destruction, they would have to take building destruction to the next level as well. We have already seen what they can do with bridges in Just Cause 3, but imagine that concept on bigger skyscrapers in this game. Now mix that with some of the new weather elements like the tornado, some of the crazy weapons we have gotten, the rideable nukes and stuff like that, and you could have so much fun. I mean, just imagine my nuke videos, but the city actually being ruined in the process. That would be just absolutely amazing. Obviously, it wouldn't really go with the story of the game, how you're constantly basically flattening the biggest city in the game, but then at the same time, Just Cause story doesn't make much sense in the first place, so let us just have fun with it, you know? Now imagine this for a second. You've got two skyscrapers right next to each other, and basically what you do is set up C4 at the bottom of each of them. Then you take a plane and try to fly in between them, and as you're doing so, you detonate the C4 and those buildings crumble above you as you're flying underneath it. I mean, that would just look so sick. And imagine, for example, escaping a dogfight by crashing falling skyscrapers into your enemies. That, I really think, would take Just Cause to the next level, and I think you guys kind of see the potential of what we could do if we had next-gen destruction. The Black Hand in Just Cause 4 was just a massive letdown, especially the more you play the story, the more you see the front lines disappear, the more inconsistent the Black Hand would become. When you're out there causing chaos and destruction, basically terrorizing the world of Solis, you expect the private military to come after you and chase you down until you're dead, but they would basically lose you after a few seconds, even in the middle of combat, which just didn't make any sort of sense. And I would even say have a feature where basically you can toggle a button that would trigger the Black Hand heat or whatever the army is going to be for the next Just Cause game. So after you finish the main story, you obviously expect no army to come after you because you have liberated the land. You have destroyed whoever you set out to destroy at the beginning of the game. So obviously it makes zero sense for them to still roam around and stuff like that. But then a simple solution, just let us toggle it. So after you finish the game, you press a button and instantly they would just come after you until you're dead. You know, they would consistently put pressure on you because as you play the game, you unlock brand new vehicles, you unlock brand new weapons, and just kind of more tools for you to take down the agency, the Black Hand, or whatever the military is that you're fighting. But then when you finish the game, all of that is gone. But that would just basically remove the problem completely and just let you experiment and do whatever you want in a Just Cause game, which is kind of what we all want. A highly requested feature from my viewers was mission replayability, and I completely agree with that. Just Cause has a lot of cool missions, set pieces, and moments throughout the story of the game, but the only way you can actually replay those is by playing the whole campaign all over again, which is far from ideal, let's be honest. So having some sort of a mission replayability feature would be amazing. And I mean, imagine this as well. You basically progress towards the end of the story, or you have finished it completely. You've got a bunch of cool vehicles, weapons, but then you can just select a mission and replay the campaign with all the new tools. That would be so much fun in my opinion. So mission replayability is definitely a must for the next game. And speaking of mission replayability, just better mission design. I think Just Cause 3 had pretty decent mission design. I didn't have too many complaints about that. It's just Cause 4 was very repetitive. So try to remove some of the repetitiveness of Just Cause 4 and I think we should be golden. Something that I'd personally like to see as well is stronger tethers or just having more of them in general. I think 10 is not good enough and maybe making them invincible or indestructible would be perfect for me. Because sometimes I just want to set up a stunt or I want to do something that just seems crazy, but then obviously the tethers are going to break whenever I set everything up, which is far from ideal, or potentially some sort of a brand new tool where we can weld objects together. I mean, just imagine the welder from Gary's mod, where you can basically snap two objects together and when you attach them, they basically become inseparable. So having something like that in a Just Cause game would be so much fun and would just open up the game massively in my opinion. So yeah, that is definitely top of my list. Now let's talk about vehicles and weapons we would like to see in the next Just Cause game. Top of the list is a submarine. A lot of people have been asking for this one for ages. Obviously with a submarine they would have to introduce underwater exploration and potentially bases to liberate that are located underwater. I think that would be a ton of fun and I'd love to see that in a Just Cause game. As well as a cargo plane 2.0. I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get some sort of a special variant of the cargo plane with Just Cause 4, but Just Cause 5 needs to have something bigger and better, you know, maybe making the cargo hold much bigger or the wingspan, making it greater and like basically just go crazy. A runway on top of it maybe, like a flying aircraft carrier. I'd love to see that. Listen, we have been landing on the cargo plane for ages, so it's about time we got a runway on it. I mean, even having weapons on it, you know, some sort of machine guns or some sort of cannons. Think of it as an AC-130, but every time you switch to those weapons, the plane would either just circle around a specific point on the map or would just fly in the direction you were flying in before switching to the gunner seat. Some form of vehicle customization would be welcomed in a Just Cause game. A lot of people have been asking for it before Just Cause 4 came out. I'm not going kind of over the top with vehicle customization, with changing everything about it. I'm more talking about, for example, adding a little bit more armor, adding some sort of weapons on it, boosters, thrusters, whatever you want. Just adding like those tiny little bits that would change up the characteristics of the vehicle to make it a little bit more unique. So for example, you could have different variants of the cargo plane, speedboats, just like race cars, sports cars, whatever. Just have a little bit of customization would be very welcomed. Post-launch vehicle additions, I think they've done a great job with the black market. Of course, that's a little bit controversial because it's paid DLC and not everybody had access to it, but I think they could approach it the right way by striking a balance of some of the free updates and paid content that they could add with the black market. For example, make all the returning vehicles from previous Just Cause games free, like they did for one of the packs of the black market vehicles for Just Cause 4. But then also introduce new vehicles over time into the game that are new, unique, kind of creative, that are obviously paid for. Maybe get some sort of a bundle, and when you do have like an ultimate gold edition, yeah, give us all those vehicles and don't make them separate. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it's very difficult to keep like a small team of people, for example, 2 to 5 guys, to basically create new content for the game for years to come when it comes to vehicles. GTA Online team has done an amazing job at that, so I think having something like that in Just Cause 5 would be absolutely perfect. As for weapons, just give us more interesting weapons, more launchers, more kind of like nukes, stuff like that. Also more physics-based weapons so we can experiment with the physics of the game, as well as bring back dual wielding, miniguns, and handguns. I would love to see that back in the next Just Cause game. With every new Just Cause game, we have gotten a new way of navigating the world. First, obviously, we had the grapple and the parachute combination. Then we have gotten the wingsuit. Then it was the weaponized wingsuit with obviously the thruster on the back of it. Then we got the hoverboard with Just Cause 4. So I think it's only fitting for Just Cause 5 to introduce something brand new to the game. You know, a brand new mode of traversing the world that would really change up the game. Because honestly, I didn't think they could top the wingsuit, but the hoverboard just makes so much sense and it works perfectly. Obviously, I have no idea what they could actually create for the next game. Maybe some sort of an exoskeleton that gives you higher jump, just basically improved mobility, something like that. Would be so cool in the next Just Cause game. Like I said, I don't exactly know what they could do with it, but if you've got any sort of suggestions, leave them in the comment section down below. Modding support. Mods are basically what keeps the game alive after the development on them stops. So having proper modding support with Just Cause 5 would be so cool. Obviously, it's a little bit of a clash having modding support as well as post-launch vehicle additions and just post-launch content, because then you're basically trying to compete with your modders and you're also trying to sell your own DLC and your own content to the player base. So it would be kind of interesting to see if we would get modding support. I'd love to see it. Like I said, I'm all for free content. Give it to the people, buy the people, vote for Vaddy Daddy president or something. I don't know. But having modding support in the next Just Cause game would be amazing. I know a lot of modders, and I know how much they have to do to get the smallest things to work, and it's kind of amazing what they've been able to achieve. You guys know who you are, so keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing an amazing job bringing the mods that we are already getting for Just Cause 3 and Just Cause 4. But anyway guys, that is gonna do it for this wish list of things I'd like to see in Just Cause 5. Obviously, I didn't cover everything. I just kind of went over some of the more popular items that we would like to see in the next Just Cause game. All of this is kind of based off of the standard that Just Cause 3 has set, in my opinion. So I imagine all of the Just Cause 3 content, and then on top of it, all of the stuff that I talked about in this video. That, in my opinion, would make a perfect Just Cause game. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new to the channel for plenty more Just Cause content. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you're gonna have a wonderful day, and I shall see you guys next time. Take care, goodbye. Bye.